Okay, so this is part two of the video that I initiated, part one, which is from an article I entitled, Are Affections of Black Brazilian Men Colonized, or Is There Another Reason for White Preferences? So in part one, I discussed this article by Shania Carlson, and she entitled her article, What Does the Black Man Want? For most of the article, she goes through an analysis where she's talking about how basically Black men have been programmed and their affections and their desires and preferences have been programmed by, the colonization, European colonization of the African mind. Now, my thing is, I'm not denying that that is probably true because I see a lot of that, but it's not just in terms of Black males in Brazil. I see it on both sides, Black males and Black females. The narrative presented by mostly Black feminists is just pointing the finger at Black men. And a lot of Black men have seen along the way, like, well, not only do a lot of Black women also have this preference for white males, you also see a situation where a lot of Black Brazilian women come out as lesbians, and I've pointed this out in other videos. They come out as lesbians, and then you'll see them booed up with white women partners as well. So, a lot of people have pointed this out. You can't point the finger at one side and say that your mind is colonized and honestly believe that the other side hasn't also been colonized. Black men and women were both enslaved in Brazil. Again, Brazil being the country that was the recipient of the most enslaved Africans during the transatlantic slave trade. Brazil received upwards between 10 to 15 times more enslaved Africans than those sent to the United States, or, how many enslaved Africans arrived in the United States, or the country that would become the United States officially in 1776. So even though I've given a lot of ear to hearing what Black women have said, and I do look at it and be like, well, a lot of women complain of this, how long are they going to be single? They're suffering for not having long-term relationships. It's something that you hear a lot coming out of the Black community in the United States, but I'm just not willing to just look at one side of this topic. I'm like, I do, throughout the Americans, I believe that we've been psychologically and emotionally colonized, by our slave masters. I do believe that still goes on here in the 21st century, but I still say, we can't come to a proper thesis and a conclusion without, listening to what both sides have to say. So in part one of this article, there was one particular part that stuck out to me because I don't feel like the author of the article, who is a Black Brazilian woman, clinical psychologist, I don't think she really dove too much into what this particular man said. And again, she said it. She said, once a long time ago, I heard from an Afro-Columbian man living in Brazil the following statement, quote, Black women don't accept the concrete fact that they prefer Black men and get with white men because of a lack of option. Black men like white women and Black women. And in fact, we prefer white women because they are less problematic, they are more functional, and that's why you are jealous of white women. And that little phrase, I'm like, as I've said, I've wanted to explore this. It would be great to see more Black Brazilian men talking about this. This guy is a Black Colombian, but he lives in Brazil. So he would have a good idea of how Black men think in Brazil. And this is very telling because oftentimes you don't get a lot of Black men saying something this bold about, okay, you see us with white women. Well, this is the reason. So while looking into this topic, there's a lot of discussions going on about this subject. It's been going on since at least 2012. Black women got ahead of the ball and they called this palmitagem, when you see specifically Black men who seem to have this preference for long-term relationships with white women. But Black men have pushed back and say, well, who you calling a palmiteiro? You women do the same thing. The palmiteiro being the term that is used to define the person who seem to have a preference for white people, right? So what I wanted to do is I took a look at a video by a popular YouTuber in Brazil, popular Black YouTuber. I forget what his name is, Tomé. is I can't remember his whole name, but it's like Tomei something. And he analyzed this situation. Now, this guy has like 124,000 followers, subscribers on his channel. His channel is called, I think, a Pt2. And he did a breakdown of this situation involving this black girl on the long-running Brazilian reality show, Big Brother Brazil. In the 22nd episode, the 22nd season, there was this young woman named Natalia, and she was interested in this white guy named Lucas on the reality show, but she completely fell apart when she saw this white guy kissing one of the girls on the show. And it was just a question she brought to the fore, talking about how difficult it is to be a black woman and secure long-term relationships. What black women in Brazil have long defined as what they call the solidão da mulher negra, solidão da mulher negra, which basically means the loneliness of the black woman, right? You'll see it all over the internet, right? Basically, they're questioning, why does it take black women so long to secure long-term relationships that lead to marriage, lead to family, children, and all of that. So this is a conversation that they've been having online for years. We look at the images, and this is what we see. So you see, there's a lot of people talking about this. This is, like I said, this has been going on for looks like about a decade now. We're saying the conversation went public in about 2013, and you see all of these women, all of these videos, these articles are talking about, again, the solidão da mulher negra. You see it all over here, right? Solidão da mulher negra, sozinha, uma mulher negra, a black woman alone. Solidão da mulher negra. You see it all over the place, all over the internet. So this is a discussion, again, that's been going on for at least a decade. And they actually gave it a name. But, as much as I listen to that side and what people are experiencing, I still, and people who have commented on this on the channel saying, okay, well, what are black men saying about this? Okay, we hear loud and clear what black women are saying, but let's hear what is it that black men are saying about this. So this is something that I wanted to look at with today's feature. This is part 2. And it's really just, I took some comments from this particular video where this YouTuber is looking into the situation involving Natalia and the Solidão da Mulher Negra. He says, this is the video that I didn't want to have to make, right? So he's addressing some of the things, some of the accusations, the narrative that's been put out by, Black Brazilian women feminists, saying this is what's going on. And he's saying, well, that's not exactly everything that's going on. So I took a look at some of the comments, and how many comments from what I saw? It's over 3,000 comments on this particular video. And as he's discussing the particular situation with Natalia, a black girl who basically had her heart broken because she saw a guy that she was interested in, with another girl on that program. And this is okay. So this is not a direct response to my article or the article that was written by the author of this particular piece. But because it's somewhat related to the same topic, it was just great. It was just, thousands of comments. It really spoke a lot to what this particular topic is. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. So I wasn't going to go through all 3,000 comments, but you'll find some great comments on here. So this is what I wanted to focus on today. What are some of the men saying, particularly the black men? So let's take a look at some of this. All right, before I move on, I wanted to discuss this very intriguing image that we have here. This is taken from the video where I was analyzing the comments. And on the left, you have one of the participants that I'm talking about, Natalia from Big Brother Brazil 22. Again, this is a woman who broke down in tears after she saw the guy that she was interested in kissing, another woman that was on Big Brother Brazil 22. And it's important to point out that the other woman was also white. So what is this? What is this image actually saying here? So on the left, you have, again, the YouTuber on the right, Tomei. And on the left, you have Natalia from the Big Brother Brazil 22 program. And you see these two words at the top where it says kazar here and fikar here. Basically, kazar means, do you marry her or do you just get with her? Do you just, how do we say, you just hook up with her? And so then you see the color chart here. This is like, this is really funny how they did this, because these are representing the skin colors that should be matched with marrying this girl. So you got white, another shade of white, and then maybe a beige white. So all of these colors represent, white women. Then you have for Black women, which means, light brown, brown skin, and dark skin Black women. So you can see it's separated into, these colors are for somebody to marry, and these colors are for somebody to just, kick it with. And this is something that Black Brazilian women have complained about for a number of years, saying that, men, not only just white men, but Black men see us also as just a woman to have like a situationship with, but then they're going to reserve the marriage for the closer you are to having white skin, the more likely you are to secure that long-term relationship. So that's what this photo is actually saying here. So in terms of solidão, this idea that Black Brazilian men prefer white women, and that's the reason for why so many Black women can't get long-term relationships. And a lot of Black men are pushing back, saying, well, there's other things involved here. So let's take a look at some of these comments. So this guy, Davison Almeida, he says, as a Black man, I always noticed that I was second in line, especially with a white friend. But a crazy experience was when I found out that on Tinder, and they use Tinder in Brazil too. I was in Brazil when I was living in Brazil, I don't know, 2014, 15, whatever year. And it was one of my students, I guess you could say a very attractive white male. And he was telling me about Tinder. He's like, man, you wouldn't believe this Tinder, man. I'm meeting with a girl that it maps it out. I've never used Tinder because, I've been in a relationship for years, but he explained it to me. He pulled out the app and he was just like, I got a girl that I'm meeting here and I got a girl that I'm meeting there. And I'm like, wow, you just saw the internet dating was just really blowing up. So that's when a lot of stuff came out while I was in Brazil that, I didn't know. I'm like, is this something new in Brazil or is this coming out of the States as it usually does? So anyway, but a crazy experience was when I found out that on Tinder, no Black woman liked me, which sounds pretty hypocritical since they say they're lonely. So this is a Black man talking. He's saying, look, Black women complain about being lonely, but they not hitting me up on Tinder. Next guy, RX570. What you said is absolutely true. Responding to Davison, he says they don't like Black men that is of the same race, especially if they are beautiful Black women with bodies. The next guy says, I tested this Tinder too, and I never get likes from Black women. Black Brazilian women are extreme eugenicists. That's intriguing that he says that, because, this is something I've talked about for years, is that it's always been the dream of white Brazilian elites to mix the Black population until it just mixes into the white population. This idea of eugenics. Brazil had its own eugenics movement, as much as the spotlight is shown on the United States. You go back to the 1930s and you see some of this same discussion, like, white Brazilian elites rubbing up their mitts, like calculating when the Black population is going to disappear through race mixing, right? So this is what this guy is saying. Next guy, actually, this is a female, apparently, Sabrina. She's responding to another guy on here, João Ronaldo Nascimento, and she says, strange that usually those who prefer white men and really want white men are usually Black women. Of all my white friends, most didn't care or they really preferred Blacks. Ricardo Leite says, believe me, man, I'm a descendant of Black and white, and I've been discriminated against by Black women. Unfortunately, this happens. He continues, worse was I found a comment saying, worse was a comment I saw a woman saying that they prefer white dingalings with pink heads and they don't like Black dingalings. Intriguing to hear that, okay? Hawkey Jr. says, I'm Black and I date a white girl, and I've always had an easier time getting with white girls than Black ones. Black women themselves want the standard white guys. But I don't blame them. Since we were children, we have always been instructed that the standard beauty is white, both man and woman. I have seen several black friends of mine belittling black women at the expense of white women. What we need is to reinforce to ourselves that we are beautiful and that the black ethnicity is beautiful and does not need approval from any other ethnicity. This is intriguing what he's saying. He admits that, and I've said this in several videos, black Brazilians, men and women, have been indoctrinated to have this preference and adoration of whiteness. So, but then this is what he's saying. This is what I'm saying. I believe that the white supremacy that goes on in Brazil makes it so that black men and women don't value each other, and they're both trying to get that trophy white partner. And this is what this guy is saying. He's saying he has an easier time dating white girls than he does black girls. Why is that? Possibly because black girls are not checking for black guys. That's not always the case. Of course, many are passed over by black men who are in pursuit of white men or white women. But at the same time, this goes the opposite way. How can it not be when both men and women, came up under white supremacy and slavery in Brazil? Okay. Here's another comment. What is this one saying here? The truth is that women of all kinds want to choose and reject, but they don't want to be chosen or rejected. And they're super demanding. This is a speaking point that you see a lot in the manosphere. So apparently this is the same thing that a lot of Brazilian men are saying as well. Next comment. The black woman complains about the white Chad refusing her, but the black guy is refused by the black woman and the white woman. Intriguing that they use the term Chad here. So I would say that this person has been paying attention to some of the conversations in the manosphere, right? In the American manosphere, because he specifically used the word Chad in this comment. Okay, ATG says, dude, I'm white. And once talking to a black friend, he told me he liked black women in bed, but he would marry a white woman. I've also seen black and mixed race women pay no attention to black men. This is real. There is an aggravated loneliness in black people of both sexes, especially when thinking about serious relationships. Again, he nails it. You can't say that this is a problem with just black men, because black women are affected by this as well. You're gonna hear more evidence of this in some of the comments that's going to be coming up here. But again, which side has a more predilection for choosing white skin? Because I'm saying it goes both ways. If this was a specific issue with just black Brazilian men talking about it, I'm sure we'd see more and more stories like this. The next comment, Fabricio Nunes, he says, this is a long comment, so just pay attention. I'm 31 years old. I'm black and I'm from Rio Grande do Sul. Rio Grande do Sul is one of the states in southern Brazil, one of the 3 states that is really considered the European section of Brazil, because about 80% of the people in the 3 most southern states in Brazil consider themselves to be white. So being a black or brown person in the south of Brazil, you're an extreme minority, in the same way that like really white people are a minority in most northeastern states in Brazil. So it's kind of opposite. So, okay. So again, he's from Rio Grande do Sul. People from that state are called gauchos. So he says, I say that the sex market is extremely limited for those who are black around here. Not the appreciation of black people among women, including black women, the desired standard. Okay. So here we go again, talking about the desired standard. What is the desired standard? I've had a lot of depression from always seeing my white friends sampling themselves with their white girlfriends, already, showing off their white girlfriends and owning them. The fact that you are black is an extremely bad thing in our society, because we always have to prove ourselves more than others. Nothing is as ever definitive as white men. I'm tired of being nice, polite, and always taking the worst of women who only give opportunities to white men. If we are black, to ask someone to date, the first thing they want is for us to build something in life. And poor whites do not need anything. They just have fair skin and will have the opportunity guaranteed. Even the white men who don't have it bother us, because their role of convincing a woman to not be interested in us is absurd, because women believe anything they lie about us, not realizing that the guy doesn't want to see us with them. It's very sad. The loneliness of the black man in this city. A lot that he put in there. At first, he talked about how even a white person who doesn't have, access to a lot of things still has an advantage over a black person. He's talking about how white men will make it so that, you know, the women that a black man might be interested in, he'll get in her head like, you don't want to get with that guy. What else did he say here? He's talking about the loneliness of the black man in the city that he's from. Now, I don't know what specific city he's from because he's from the state of Rio Grande do Sul, but listen to what that guy is saying. What it is to be a black person, and particularly in a part of the country where white people are the majority. But again, he's saying that, you know, black women pass him up too. He's tired of being passed over. Okay, Mr. Green. People trip me out. They use like some American profile names, or at least, you know, English language profile names. This guy calls himself Mr. Green. He says, "I am black, and everything you said is true. But there is another factor that is taboo, the palmitaging, which I've already discussed. Black men and women who prefer to relate to Caucasian men and women, but it only gets worse. Getting turned down by a beautiful white woman is simpler than getting turned down by a beautiful black woman. You have no idea how arrogant and outraged some of them feel when they see a common black man who is neither Chad nor a standout or prominent, even thinking that he could have a chance with them." Again, he refers to the this phrase that we use in the American, you know, manosphere, talking about Chad, you know, the handsome, debonair, you know, white male. And so this is listen to what he's saying. He's saying it gets, and this is another comment that I've heard before. Like, he's saying that a lot of Black Brazilian women just almost like humiliate a black man for thinking he had a chance of getting with her. That's something. So I said, what is the other side of the coin? And he talked about, what else did he say here? Turned down by beautiful women. Okay, so he said, you know, they're outraged. Some of them, the outrage that some of them feel when they see a common black man. This is something that you hear in the American manosphere all the time. Like, you know, there's plenty of men out here. You just want something of the top echelon of the men, the richest men, the men who have the best jobs, the highest education, the financial access. So all of these men you're ignoring. So this is basically the same thing that he's saying. Then you get this comment, Igor VBR. He says, "I had a former black and single friend who said the following sentence." Listen to this, because I've seen this in other, I've mentioned this particular comment in other videos. He said, he's heard a black woman say this: "It's enough that I'm black. I don't want a black man, no." And so he's asking, is it appropriate, this type of comment? This is something that I saw in another one of my videos where, you know, this is something that you hear from time to time. Like, look, I'm already black by myself. Why would I get with somebody who's black like me? You know, so the comment that I saw in one of my previous articles where a black man said to a black woman, you know, "I have to have a white partner by my side. I can't have somebody black like me." It's basically the same thing, except this is coming from a woman. And it's not the first time you hear this. It's something that you will hear from time to time. So this is what I say is problematic when you have black women pointing the finger only at black men, when this idea of, I got to get somebody white, is something that's in the minds of Black Brazilian women as well. Okay, so Aldo Rainey, he says, "The loneliness of the black woman is a lie." I've heard a lot of men say that. Says, "I'm from Rio de Janeiro, and I've already been to samba, or say samba parties, samba gatherings in the court of Portela." Portela is one of the most famous, you know, legendary samba schools. You see putting on the huge carnival processions during, you know, Rio de Janeiro Carnival. So Portela is one of the most popular and legendary samba schools in Brazil. He says he goes to these samba get-togethers, you know, sponsored by Portela. And he says 100% of black women were with foreign men, you know, French, Dutch. The Black Brazilian men are totally invisible. So listen to what he's saying. Now, this goes into something that a lot of my contacts who have lived in Rio have visited some of Rio's most beautiful beaches, and they'll say, you can go to one of those beaches any day of the week and see some of the most beautiful Black Brazilian women with just basic looking white men. So this is the same thing that this guy is saying right here. So who's right and who's wrong here? Obviously, I think the response from the Black Brazilian women would say, well, of course we're getting with European, you know, white men, you know, black men pass us up. But is that always just the case, or do a lot of Black women also have a preference for white men? There's no single answer to this question. I'm just featuring some of these comments to hear what the other side is saying. Let me see. Let me keep this going. So here's a comment from somebody named Bishop. The loneliness of Black women is only put on the agenda by militancy when they are rejected by standard white and Black men, like P.A., Rodrigo, and Lucas. P.A. meaning Paulo Andre, Rodrigo, and Lucas. These were three men, two white men and one Black man who were featured on Big Brother Brazil 22. This is the same edition, Big Brother Brazil 22, in which I was just talking about this girl, Natalia, who she started crying after she saw the guy she was interested kissing another girl on the show. So he's saying here that you can have a standard white man and Black man represented by these three men that are on the show, one Black guy, two white men. But then he says the question, why didn't Natalia get interested in Douglas and Luciano? These are two other Black men on the show on that particular edition of Big Brother Brazil. Douglas is a well-known actor. A lot of you might remember him from City of Gods, Cidade de Deus from I think 2002. He played Lil Zay Pequeno as a child. And then this guy Luciano, you got a dark-skinned Black man and a lighter-skinned Black man here. He provides the answer. He says because one is short, dark, and overweight. The other is tall with a nice body with a badly shaped face. Height and beauty are everything in the minorities. Either you have one or you have the other. What saves me is my face. Yes, even brown, I have Eurocentric features because I've been passed over by women just because I'm 5'9". Detail. The women who passed me by, I wasn't even interested in, but they always find a pretext to justify it. And the most ironic thing, they all speak out against the loneliness of the Black woman. So listen to what he's saying here. He's saying that, look, they'll pass up regular guys. If you're not in that upper echelon, like he's saying about the guys on the show, perhaps Natalia would have had a chance with the other guys who she wasn't paying attention to, but she wanted those top tier men, Paulo, Andre, Rodrigo, and Lucas. She didn't get a chance. I guess she was messing around with Lucas, who she wanted, but then she saw him kissing another girl and she got totally devastated. But is it a fact that you don't have choices, or it's just that the men who would give you the time of day you're not interested in? Again, something that we've been hearing in the manosphere in the United States, for some time now. These same women he's saying are the ones that's mainly talking about the loneliness of the Black woman. Now, this guy calls himself Tyrone Red Piliado. That's funny. So not only has he taken on the term Tyrone, as we talk about Chads and Tyrone in the manosphere, but when someone says they're red pilled in Brazil, they call it Rejepilado. You pronounce it that way. So this is, if you pronounced it like the Brazilians, would it probably be something like Tironi Rejepilado, right? He says, I'm Black, tall, 5'11" plus. In the sexual market part, I never had much difficulty in having relations with average women. The only difficulty I have are with the women with higher VSM, meaning SMV, or sexual market value. They call it valor sexual mercado, right? VSM. So they use the same term, but in Portuguese, sexual market value. So he's saying the only difficulty he has with women are with women who have a higher sexual market value, being a 9 or 10 if they exist. But for the average Black man in the static part, he has to work much harder than a white man because there are already several figures in the mainstream of the European man that this makes most Brazilian women have a preference for these guys, the square jaw, symmetrical eyes, broad shoulders, etc. So he's saying here that being Black in Brazil, basically you have to be a cut above everybody else because just the average white guy is going to get more attention than a Black guy who doesn't have a whole lot going for himself, right? If you're the quote unquote, the average Black man, okay? Let me see what else we have. Okay, this is the last one, and it's a pretty long one, so just pay attention. And this is an intriguing story that this guy tells here. So this is Hobison Fernando. He says, yes, people in general, man and woman, want to date beautiful and attractive people, regardless of skin color. But this issue of skin color being a main factor to date or marry is real. I have 4 Black sisters. 3 of them are dark skinned, and the 4th one is lighter than Jay from the show Il a Patroa y as Crianças, which is My Wife and Kids. So he said Jay from My Wife and Kids. Again, I've talked about this before, that American film and television series are huge in Brazil. You know, everybody hates Chris, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, This My Wife and Kids. They're all shown on Brazilian television, and they just put they overdub the voices, you know, the lines in Portuguese. So, you know, for a Portuguese speaking audience. But he's saying his 4th sister is a little lighter than what is her name? The actress who played Jay, Tisha Campbell. So he's saying that one of his sisters is lighter than Tisha Campbell. This lighter one has already managed to have several interracial relationships with white guys, but none of them took her serious. They just had sex with her and didn't make any commitments. There was a time when she got a white friend of my brother, and he just had sex with her and dismissed her. She was offering herself to him like a crazy person, and to his friends too. Listen to this. The other older one is reaching 30 years old. She is negra retinta, which means a dark-skinned Black woman. She's equal to actress Erika Januza. I've talked a little bit about Erika. I consider her to be one of the most beautiful women in the country. I like Erika Januza. You know, I wouldn't even consider her dark-skinned. She's a brown-skinned girl. But, you know, a lot of people talk about Erika Januza because you only see her with white men. But, okay, so this sister he's talking about is dark-skinned. She's almost 30 and she's very overweight. She can't lose weight. She has 2 degrees, is a nice person to exchange ideas with, and she knows how to do everything indoors: cook, clean, fix the shower, etc. Only that no guy she's dated has ever been interested in her. She spent 10 years chasing a white guy who was handsome, financially stable, and socially fluent. Anyway, I see that she is very frustrated with this issue. She was rejected several times by this guy who chose to smash my lighter sister. I can't understand Black women in general. I think it's an inferiority complex, because to offer herself as a piece of meat for white guys to smash and do what they want, it's a lot of lack of self-love when there are several Black guys in the same friendship circle. Black women prefer to have a white guy with slick down hair. This is an unknown that I still can't get about Black women to decipher. Abrazos, you know, hugs, he says. So listen to his breakdown. You know, he's just talking about his 4 sisters, you know, and he's just talking about how white men go all through his sisters. They could probably have a relationship with a Black man that they put in a friendship circle, but it seems like they don't want them. They're going after Chad, the guy with the slick hair. And it's something that he can't understand. He thinks it's a lack of self-esteem. It's the same accusation that Black women are making of Black men. So, you know, there's a lot going on here. The more I dig, the more that I'm going to see these answers to these questions. It's like, if you didn't know these were Brazilian men that were talking, you would think this is the same thing you hear in the American manosphere. These are some of the very same talking points that you get in the United States. So a lot was going on here. I think you just getting the comments from everyday Brazilian men, you know, I think we get a good reflection of what the other side is saying. You know, not only is it Black women are, you know, under the same dictatorship of whiteness as Black Brazilian men, you know, it's going on. They're affected in the same way. So who's right, who's wrong? It looks to me like both sides. You know, somebody said this earlier in an earlier comment, like, the problem in the Black community is that we have to be able to build self-esteem and appreciation of our own race. You know, we don't need to wait to be, you know, appreciated by another race. And this is across the aisle. This applies to Black Brazilian men and women. So that's why I wanted to post this today. It's a direct response. Well, not actually a direct response, because these comments are not directed at the article that I read, but because it's on the same topic, you know, what else is going on here? What are Black Brazilian men saying? What are the white people saying? Even white people see what's going on here. So this is going to conclude part 2 of this video. The title being, let me see, what is the title of this video, this article again? It was called are affections of Black Brazilian men colonized, or is there another reason for white preferences? So this is why I wanted to bring this out, because this is a conversation that's going on. This is what the other side is saying. So I'm going to just say Black Brazilians in general, a lot of issues to deal with there, you know, and pointing fingers is not going to get the job done. So definitely want to hear what you thought about this video. Definitely leave your comments, you know, in the comment section. Consider subscribing to this channel, particularly if you watch more than a few videos of this channel. You know, share the video, you know, like it. Definitely click on the notification bell so you'll know when I got other videos coming up. So I'm hoping this sparks another conversation. I'm curious to know what everybody thinks about this particular video. So with that said, I'm going to end part 2 here, and invite you all to come back and check out my next video.